if you've got a number of people coming into your group and they get on this Zoom and they can learn about different things. What do you have, Nina, lined up? Do you have for next week? Well, see, next week will be the holidays. But when you do have it again, you probably will let everybody know what's on the schedule.
Yeah, and if you want, Roland, we can send an email to Jean and she can send it out to your group.
Oh, great. Okay.
Okay, because Marion gets a nice email out every day.
Mm-hmm. That's very, very good.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you got that, the Bennett's about the Zoom that's on at 7 o'clock Central Time, 8 o'clock Eastern, and it's all on products, testimonials, people telling stories. It's really, really, really good. And I cannot emphasize how important that is because I keep thinking of Melky Tallberg from New York. She would do a weekly call just on products. And people would listen in and they knew what next week was going to be about. And she became a master coordinator. That was the main thing that was being done. So we've got to get people learning about products. And so once they get started on it, the goal is to get them into 2 lines of products in 30 days.
And can I ask?
Excuse me, 45 days.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if anybody who is on here, if you've got some testimonials or people who have testimonials who are willing to share, or if you're willing to share them, either let Marion or myself know. We would love to have, you know, as much input as we can in there as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, get your people on that Zoom. And then, of course, people are interested more in the business, get them on this Zoom. And I feel that as a leader, of course, I'm prejudiced to these 2 Zooms. There are a lot of Zooms you can be on. You can be Zooming all over the place. So you have to be thinking as to what is the best beneficial thing that you can do and where your people should be spending their time, because some people can get addicted to the calls, the Zooms, and so on. They think they're doing Shackley, and that's a part of it. But you still have to go out there and do various things. The other thing I'd like to comment on is, like I had a talk with Maggie this evening, finding out what do you want to accomplish in Shackley. So that way we can figure out together what it's going to take to do that. It's like somebody comes to you and says, well, what can I do to have better health? I don't have much energy and so on. And so you may recommend some basic supplements or protein or Vital E. And they say, well, can I take the protein once every 3 weeks? Well, it's not going to work. And so, therefore, there are just certain things that must be done to get better health. You know, good water, good sleep, good exercise, good food, and so on. Likewise, in the business, many people do not forecast where they're going, and therefore they can't have a plan. And they're looking for that next person to make all the difference in the world. When we forecast where we're going, a number of things happen. One is that the subconscious is trying to figure it out all the time, all the time. The other thing is, if we understand Dr. Shackley's reflections on a philosophy and the thinking and so on, what we're doing is casting out a message that other people will pick up to a great extent. It's just like, I was talking to somebody today and she said, yeah, it's very true. Sometimes when I think about somebody, then I call them and say, I've been thinking about you. So we know this is true. So you have that benefit of helping people with their thinking before you've ever talked to them. And I don't understand it. It's all about energy, but it does happen. So if we are waiting for that next person to make our business work to whatever, it's not going to happen. We've got to focus on where we're going. Then these are the things to get there, just like a farmer. What do you want to harvest? Okay, now let's figure out what you're going to plant. Let's figure out how you're going to take care of the soil. Let's figure out what you're going to do to it to keep the weeds out. Let's figure all these things out. And unfortunately in Shackley, people do not anticipate, plan the future. So I'm happy to do this with anybody, and Maggie's going to be doing this. Thank you, Maggie. And we'll just talk about it and figure out what is it going to take to get there. I don't know if any of you had the opportunity, and I believe if you've been on the 90 Days to Momentum, you can get the interview that was done with Adam, I think his name was Adam Green. Richard has talked about Adam Green as the young kid starting, I believe, at 22 years of age, and he's now 29 and he makes $2 million a year in network marketing. And what I got out of that interview, and the kid he's really a nice kid. I mean, he doesn't brag about anything. He's just very, very down to earth. Great, great interview. But Richard asked him, what did you do when you got started? I mean, what made you do the things you did to make it happen? And he said, well, I had saved up enough money so I could live for a year without working at anything else. And he said, I realized that if I did not do the things that I really didn't like doing, I would have to go back to work. I wouldn't accomplish as much. And therefore, the decision was to really get my business going so I would not have to go back to work. And of course, it picked up a tremendous amount of momentum. And that's where he is today. And so it's just like, I think Noel sent to me trying to think of that guy's name. Noel, you probably remember the opera singer. His middle name is Speedo. And it was on 60 Minutes. And he had a very, very rough life as a child and so on. But then as he started putting things together, he talked to a person in the music field. I believe it was an instructor. And he said, my goal is to play at the Met in New York City. That is what I want to do. And the person did not say, well, it's going to be a tough job. It's really going to be a lot of work. It's going to be hard. He just said, these are the 5 things, I believe it was 5 things that you must do if you want to go there. And to me, that was very revealing as well. What are the things that must be done to get to where you want to go? So let's figure out where you're going and then figure out the things necessary to get there. And we may adjust it, but I'd love to plan with you. And that is the process of getting into the $100 club or $100,000 club. In other words, you set your course and you have one other person who wants to go with you. Then you're going to be in the $100,000 club, which is how you can make $100,000 plus what you're earning right now. So those are the things that I wanted to comment on, and I wanted to hear from you what you're projecting, and I would like to know, for the benefit of everybody, what you're planning on doing to accomplish that. Because so many people I talk to, they don't have a plan, and the reason they can't have a plan, or they try to have a plan, but it generally doesn't go very far because they really have not projected where they're going and really studied it. And of course, that's why we did the thing on studying on the sales plan. So now we can really put some strategy into it. So who wants to go first? And I'd like to hear from all of you as to what you're doing to plan your future. We've come off the program out of Chicago with Richard, and I mean, we should really, really have some foresight as to what our business is going to look like in a given amount of time and what we're going to do. Who wants to start? Go.
Hi, Roland.
Thank you, Courtney and Clint. Yes, thank you.
So we sat down with Lisa and went through our business of where we need to work in depth. And by doing that, it helped me realize, well, actually it helped both of us realize to ask one of our friends who was, what are they, 5 levels? 5 levels down from us to read the 4-year career. And Clint did really good at asking the husband. The wife was already liking the stuff, but he at church took the man aside and was talking to him. And he really liked it a lot. He read it in 2 hours. He loved it. He's all about it. And then we had followed up with that with you, Roland, on a 3-way call. And they actually got on the testimony call that we just had at 7 o'clock. So they're and they, we're going to sit down and have dinner with them and go over their questions and that kind of thing. But seeing the way that we did lay out our business, it really helped. Just, kind of have more of that vision.
So what is the next step that you're looking at with them? And what do you think after the conversations we had, the 3-way call and so on, what do you think they're looking at to start with?
They're looking at the big picture. They're like, so he said he knows exactly that they need to make at least 100 to 150 a year. Is that what you're asking? Like what?
Yes.
Yeah. So we are, we're right there with them. So, what's exciting about this is being that they're deeper in our business, it's going to be exciting to see the domino effect going.
How far are they down in your group?
I think they're the 5th level.
Yep.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That will produce a volcano.
Yes. Very exciting.
That is very good. Okay, let's go over some things. Do you feel they'll be coachable?
I do. I feel that he gets quite excited, and so I feel like that's something, but he's definitely open. Everything that you said, he's taken it all to heart. And like with Nina, when we were going over this, he has questions, but yep. I think he does take it in and runs with it.
He's a very analytical, data-driven guy. So, and I deal with those every day. I think I'll be able to help him satisfy some of those questions.
Okay, very good.
With guidance, So.
Uh-huh. Let's say he's definitely wanting to make $150,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
So you should have in your mind what the group is going to look like. It may not be ready to go over it all with him, but you guys should have in your mind what the group is going to look like to do that.
He's going to need it. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
He's going to need, a $2 to $3 million asset to make that happen, to make, the 10 to 12,000 a month.
Mm-hmm.
So.
But how is it going to look like with the money?
He's going to need to get to at least executive coordinator, senior executive coordinator probably, which means he's going to have.
Yeah, must go past that.
Yeah. So senior executive, he's probably going to have somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 to 3 senior coordinators and one coordinator with high volume.
Okay, so you must figure out exactly a hypothetical what that group will look like.
Yep.
Because that's going to help you organize, not necessarily you don't want him getting into the middle of that and trying to figure that all out right now, but you should know exactly when you're putting the strategy in where to work. Now, will you put in some guidelines as to how many in-homes you will do before they start doing them? Based on what he has said, he likes to get up and talk. What do you think would be the number that you would do, or what would be the guideline or criteria on that?
I think
at least 2 in-homes a week.
Well, I think us doing 2, the first one, and then so they can kind of see how it goes, and then the second one, have them at least tell their story or why they're interested in Shackley, and then the third one kind of have it split, and then the fourth one have them do the whole thing.
Right.
No more cradling.
definitely by the third or fourth one, they should be doing their own in-homes.
Right.
And you want to make certain you're getting another leg
Mhm.
going down. So that way they are on their way to coordinator.
Okay.
If they do a couple in-home, really, to really make this thing happen quickly, it's 2 group presentations a week.
Mhm.
Right.
It may be a skincare with 3 or 4 people, but it's generally that number. Nina and Marion and Neppers, when you got started in Shackley, how many group presentations did you do a week? How many? 2.
2.
Nepper?
Oh, oftentimes we would do 2 a night, 3 or 4 times a week.
Mhm.
But that was back in the 70s, and
Mhm.
it was new around here. So
Okay.
Mhm. I had a
Lee-
family, and I never did. I made a commitment that I would never do more than 2 a week, but I had other people doing them.
yes.
Okay.
That's what we want.
Marion, how many did you do in the beginning when you started doing in-homes?
Well, I was just sitting here thinking, Roland, I am so happy that you cradled me for a while. Because I wasn't one of these that was going to get up and do an in-home at the first thing. Oh my goodness, my battery's running low. I wasn't one of these people that was going to get up and right away and do an in-home. But when I got to that point, we were doing one every night. I remember one time that we went to Chicago for a 9 to 5 meeting, got home and drove to Wheatfield and did a meeting down there that night. And I was so pooped, but I couldn't let nobody know that. But no kidding, we did 4 to 5 a week at least.
So after you started doing those in-homes, how long before you had somebody else doing in-homes?
Oh, well, that wasn't very long. Let me think here. Because, well, let's see, the first couple that you and us sat down with, that was the Wells. And so, I mean, that happened pretty quick, Roland, because they were not shy like I was. And they started doing them, but then they got another couple under them, which
Yep.
is still there today, Sue Smith.
Oh,
And-
yes.
And Sue was like a magnet, and she drew people to her and did skin cares and did all this stuff. And it wasn't long until they had somebody going. I mean, and when I say that it wasn't very long, you know, we're saying maybe a couple, 3 months at the most.
Most, yeah. I believe today, and I'd like to get input from some of you who've been around for a while, or anybody, but I believe with what we understand of the business and what we understand about the strategy in the business, I believe with 2 in-homes a week, we can accomplish more than what we did at that time, because we were running helter-skelter. We were all over the place. If somebody said, I think, yeah, we'll be there. You know, 2-hour drive. Yeah, I'll be there. And there wasn't really any planning. It was just doing meetings all over the place.
Right.
So if we think sensibly and put strategy in, I believe with 2 a week, we can accomplish more than we did back then when we were doing 3 and 4 a week. Lisa?
Yes, can you hear me, Roland?
Yep.
Because I'm on my phone tonight. I can only see you. When I started, you know, way back when we broke out, we were doing 3 a week. And I just think about Dan and Tracy went out 2 months after we did. We had 3 first levels. By the time we went to San Francisco, within 6 months, qualified for our car, and we were at 10,000 PV. And we were doing 3 a week. And I was just, you know, talking with everyone on our team call Monday of, you know, how we got away from that. But like you said, I talked about 2 a week because like you said, with the strategy, and I've always tried to do 3 presentations a week. Gotten away from it, you know, not doing it as faithfully as I was, but I agree with 2, in the right place and in depth, like you're saying, and planning it out where you're going to work.
Right. Yeah, we didn't even know about depth.
No.
I mean, I saw it happen in 1976, but I did not understand the strategy of it like I understand it today.
Mhm.
So that's why I feel 2 a week. 2 a week will
Mhm.
definitely put you to executive level from starting at 0 to
Mhm.
6 months.
Yeah.
2 a week, because to me that's equivalent to about 3 or 4 a week, not knowing what you're doing, having a strategy.
Yeah.
Because that's what we did. I mean, we just didn't have a plan. I mean, other than do meetings. That's all we did meetings. How about you, Dick? McLean? You remember how many you were doing in the beginning?
Yeah, I wish Pam was on the call. She can't be on tonight. And in the beginning, it really was Pam doing it. I wasn't so much in those early days, but I would guess she did at least a couple a week, in addition to one-on-ones. But I mean, either as far as an actual meeting, in-home, healthy home, skincare, whatever, at least a couple a week. And to the point of putting strategy in it, I remember, wow, probably in the late 70s, Roland, you were really emphasizing to us about, working in depth. And I remember 1-2 month period of time, we were in Traverse City that year, and I was driving downstate every week doing meetings. And I really only had one goal in every in-home meeting, and that was to get a new person there to agree to do a meeting in their home the next week. I didn't care how much product we sold. I just wanted to get another meeting scheduled one level down. And I remember 1-2 month period of time, in 7 weeks time, we were 7 levels down, and the person at the top had become a director. And that strategy really works. So, Courtney, what you were saying about working with someone 5 levels down, what that generates all the way upstream, that just, there's some people that won't do anything with it, but there are a lot of people that will get motivated when they have something to lose and when they see something happening under them. So I think you're right, Roland, that not just doing 2 a week, but doing it with real strategy, knowing where you're doing it and trying to target that. Obviously, you have to be opportunistic to stuff that comes along. But for our part, yeah, it needs to be planned out. And I think, yeah, we can accomplish more with less doing that.
And thank you, Dick. And I believe if we have high expectations for people, you can learn some skills. You can look at a DVD and somebody doing an in-home presentation. We've got the writing skills. We've got Zoom. We didn't have Zoom before. Everybody got cassette tapes, but there wasn't anything really visual. Now we've got a lot of visuals that they can look at how to do an in-home. But I believe if we have high expectations that I will do, you've got to decide the person you're working with. Maybe you have to cradle them like I did with Marion for a while. But you do a couple in-homes and then you do them. I know Ruth Kuntz, who I'm going to have on one of these Zooms from Chicago, who has a lot of people now doing in-home presentations on their own. I asked her when I was in Chicago, how many? She says, I got about 6 or 7 people doing in-homes. I mean, she's going to zoom right up past master coordinators so quickly because she's going to start a momentum thing that other people will continue. And that start is so important. That start is so important because if you start off at a slow pace, then everybody else is going to be slower until there's no growth. Andre, any comments on this?
Our family did, I think, one presentation a week, one in-home a week for a while there. Of course, we need to get back. Well, being sponsored by my parents, everybody I knew, they knew, or everybody they knew, I knew, and they joined my parents, not me. So I had to sort of strike out on my own back then. And I focused on one-on-one presentations. I mean, we're going back a while. didn't know what I was doing, but just raw enthusiasm.
Mm-hmm.
Today we want to put planning and strategy into it, right?
Absolutely. Yes. Very good. Noel, how many did you guys do in the beginning? You're still muted, Noel. The left, there you go.
Yeah, on an average, we did about one meeting per week. And unfortunately, they were way out of town. We can remember going to a meeting, leaving work, and doing a meeting all the way in Sudbury, which was about 3-4 hours from here. And we did 500 club meetings. And that generated enthusiasm because people started to believe that products could be sold. When products were sold, therefore volume was created. And then we rushed back to, got back home about 5 o'clock, got up at 7, went to work. So basically that's what we did. And then we started having meetings at our own home.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's the other thing. We've got to figure out, is it worth it to do some crazy things, burn the midnight oil for at least 6 months? Is it worth it to have something that's going to continue building, give you well over a 6-figure income, and as you get further along, you can work the business more on the phone, on the Zoom, and so on, because you now are in the business of helping people with their vision. Those are things we really didn't know about, we didn't talk about. But once you get to about 6 months, you're now working with people on their vision, which I have said I will do a fantastic job of that because I didn't do a good enough job of helping people with the vision. Like Richard said, if you know somebody in your group is looking for a car, then go with them to look at the car. It's take them out to lunch because they've accomplished something. It's recognition, and helping them with that vision. And this is why I want to talk to people and find out what your vision is so we can do a plan together. That's going to save you a lot of time. So in my opinion, it was all worth it. And as many of you know, I drove a lot of miles. And Marion would say, okay, you're driving from Traverse City over a 4-hour drive down to Indiana. And you mean you're going back tonight? I said, yeah, I go back tonight. Get back about 2 in the morning. And that was not just me. Joanne and Earl Boltinghouse are master coordinators from Iowa. She was a school teacher. There weren't many meetings going on around where she could learn about Shaklee, but she had an incredible desire to do this business. So she would get out of school, maybe she'd even get out a little early as a teacher, and then she would drive to Minneapolis, which I believe was about 4 hours at least away, 4 or 5 hours, go to the meeting, and get home about 3 or 4 in the morning. She did it about weekly. And people say, well, you're pretty crazy. And of course, they see the business you have, and you say, oh, you're lucky. No, we put the time in. But it was the most exciting time ever. Pardon me?
You used to drive home from Wisconsin after a meeting at night, and that was an 8-hour drive. And get home at 4 in the morning, and I thought you were totally nuts.
I am.
Well,
I was.
He'd drive to Canada and drive back.
Yes.
A couple of times, eh, Roland?
That's right.
Yeah.
Roland,
Yes.
you know, back when we were doing all the meetings and all of that, you know, I never used door prize cards or a follow-up card. You know, I had learned to watch for the person in the in-home that had the best sparkle in their eyes, showed the most interest. I just zeroed in on them. And I didn't worry about all the rest of those people who were there. I mean, if they had questions or they asked me, why we answer them. However, the point of it was the follow-up that I know I didn't do. I don't know about the rest of you guys, but when it was the follow-up with the door prize cards, you got their name and their phone number, you can follow up with them. I finally, just this last time we had Martha Wilmore here, I thought, why in the world do I take door prize cards there? Because I had a bunch of new people there. I had 16 people or something like that. And so I took door prize cards. They all filled them out, and I knew what they were thinking when I got done, or a little bit of what they were thinking. But it took me 40 years to figure it out.
You've been cradling you too long, Marion.
Well, we're done with that, Roland.
Okay.
Aren't you glad?
Yeah, it saves me a lot of time, believe me. Oh, well, it's so important to, once again, to be thinking ahead to planning, because otherwise we're going to miss the opportunity to really step up and be a leader. So as an example, if you have people that start growing, and that's going to happen, you have people excited about Shackley. Maybe they're not ready to say, I really want to make a big income, but they're going to start growing. Some people are on the way to director. Maybe that's as far as they'll go. But you should be thinking of something that was always productive and is still incredibly productive. And that is to have like a quarterly dinner. And everybody pays for it unless they've moved up in rank or something like that. And you can set the boundaries, the goals, to however you like it. But let's say, for instance, they move up in, rank or whatever, they move up in volume, whatever you want to set up. And then if you do this much more, then your spouse is paid for too. And what would happen at a dinner, you get the spouses. You get the husband and wife generally at a dinner. And so I don't care if you're just getting really started in Shackley, you should be looking at something within 3 months if you're going to be doing 2 in-homes a week. And this is where you've got to sit down and look at the numbers, because if you're doing 2 a week and you have an average of at least 5 people at an in-home, 4 of them are going to be buying at each one. That's 8 new people buying Shackley. You've got them going to the Zoom where they can learn about products from other people, hear the stories. And you may want to even set up in a morning a Zoom where you can have people on your Zoom talking about stories, health stories, because that was one of the benefits of doing all those meetings that we did. People would come to a meeting and come to another one, and they heard the stories. And that's why we have people in our businesses who've been in for 40 years. They really got committed by hearing all these stories. So you've got to figure out as a leader how you're going to get people hearing all these stories, and what are the things that you're going to do to recognize people. And there's nothing better than to have a guest speaker. This is where you should be looking at everybody else on the Zoom and figuring out who could be my guest speaker at a recognition dinner. And I remember very well some of those dinners, people were standing in a long line to get recognized as new directors or becoming associates, as we called them in Shackley at that time. There would probably be 20 people standing in line to get recognized. And that was basically it. We had the dinner, and people got up there and said a couple things and on to the next person. That took your whole time. Those are things you should be planning right now if you want to have a successful business that goes beyond executive and senior executive. Those are the things we should be planning. And that's where we want to sit down and look at the numbers, because if you're doing those presentations and you then get somebody else within a couple of weeks, they're doing the presentations, and say 4 weeks later, you get somebody else doing presentations. You got 6, 7 people doing presentations. You're going to have within 3 months, and we're talking about, let's start January, February, and March, you should be looking at a recognition dinner. Start looking for a location now. This is where you're casting the vision for yourself. And those were so powerful. I don't know if anybody wants to comment on some of those things that we did. And we had the retreats, which were incredibly fun. I laugh as I think about these crazy things at a weekend retreat. And we'd have a special guest come in. One time we had Zig Ziglar. Maybe you heard of Zig Ziglar, but we had Zig Ziglar at a retreat. And crazy things. Some of you know Valda and Dave Sutterholm, but they were master coordinators in Minneapolis, and they were going to have a retreat up in Baudette, Minnesota. Baudette doesn't even have a stoplight or a flashing light. It's just a small town. And Zig Ziglar was there too. And we were speaking with Zig, or guest speakers. And Valda, I mean, she'd come up with the craziest thing. She wanted to have a parade. And so she found a convertible, or somebody brought a convertible up, and we're sitting on the back of the convertible, and I think we passed 3 people on the street. Nobody was there. But it was fun. And that's the other thing. We want to make Shackley a lot of fun. We had canoe trips. Everybody get together and we'd go on a canoe trip in the summertime. So you want to think of fun things that you can do in the summertime. Is a great time to have a picnic in the backyard. You know? So these are things as a leader you must be thinking about, and we want to put it in a time schedule. If you're going to be doing this and this and this, and this is what you want, then we start preparing those things now. Other comments on that? Because it's extremely important to start taking up the leadership now. What are you thinking?
Well, and I've very much gotten away from doing the get-togethers. And I know I've talked to different ones that I'm at fault by stopping them myself, but it's like, that's where we built that camaraderie amongst several of us who are here on this call. In the past was those get-togethers, because that, I think besides it building camaraderie, it built strength in the team.
Mm-hmm.
So I wrote that down, that I'm going to go back to doing that again.
Good. Yeah, we provided like a Shackley world where many of the things we would do, the kids would all come.
Oh, yeah.
And they had a great time, and they learned about Shackley. And so it just was a lot of fun.
Yep.
A lot of fun, which we must start providing. That's part of the leadership thing, to make it fun. Who else?
Hey, Roland.
Yes, Dick.
Yeah, just those of the retreats. I mean, I think there's so many at Shush Mountain and Sugarloaf, and the one at Mackinac Island. I have to tell just a funny story from Mackinac Island. Remember, Jack Wilder was there. And remember, we all, he was coming in like the day after we started. And so there were about, 100, 150 of us on the front porch of the Grand Hotel as Jack, to greet Jack as he comes up on the horse-drawn carriage. And I was standing there, and when we all started clapping, there was a guy there who was not a part of the Shackley group. He just sees 150 people on the porch clapping. And so he started clapping. And after a minute, he stopped and he looked at me. He said, "What are we clapping for?" And I said, "Jack's here." And he said, "Oh." And he started clapping again. And a minute later, he stopped and he said, "Who's Jack?" So one of my great memories from one of those fun weekends.
I remember.
But yeah, they were great.
Really? Yeah, what you described is fantastic.
Roland.
We used to go to those retreats that you would do every year, and Pam would always want to stay till the bitter end. And we leave northern Michigan at midnight. I'd have to preach the next morning. We get home at 4 or 5 in the morning and sleep 2 hours and get up and be totally incoherent. But they were great. And yeah, like you say, they created a sense of community. You felt like you were a part of something bigger than yourself. And there was a lot of energy that came from it.
But that story about Jack Wilder, I'll never forget. I mean, you know, that guy saying, you know, who is this? Jack. Oh, great. Who's Jack? Who's Jack? Jack Wilder. And he starts clapping and then taking pictures of Jack getting out of the carriage. And he didn't have a clue what it was about. Oh, those are great.
One of the things I wanted to mention was, you know, we've all gone through the Richard Brooke thing. But, you know, if you don't have the in-homes and the group camaraderie that comes out of the in-homes into the quarterly dinner and yada, 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 and on and on and on. If you don't do that, if you don't do the in-homes, then you're not going to have what you would have, you know, with doing in-homes and the book. Oh, what a great way to get some books out at an in-home.
That's right. That's a great way. Very good.
And something that Dick mentioned that I think is, you know, you said that you realized you were part of something bigger than yourself. And I think that that is even bigger of an issue today than it may have been back then. I know that we all felt very strongly about that, but people don't feel like they belong to anything anymore because they're so disconnected living in a runaround world.
Boy, that is so true.
Over and over from people that the connections just aren't there, and people crave that.
Oh my goodness, that is a great point, Nina, because people are starving for that recognition, the connection, and here we can provide it. I mean, they would probably want to flock to us once they hear about what's going on, what fun people are having in the connection. That's wonderful. Yes.
Yeah. Roland, was that Crystal Mountain where I was afraid to climb the mountain? I think I crawled on my hands and knees up to the top.
It could have been Sugarloaf.
I thought it was Crystal Mountain. It was
I
like
think there was a retreat there was one retreat at Crystal Mountain too.
But I don't remember climbing mountains there, Lisa, at Crystal Mountain.
No, it was to get to the top for the ski lift. I did. You had to. Oh, I was there. Me and Chris and Mike and Monica Fagans and Amy. Oh my gosh. I'll never forget that. I was afraid of heights, but I did it anyway. I crawled on my hands and knees up to the top.
Yeah, you never forget those things.
You don't.
But that was huge. That was a huge weekend.
Yes.
But in life, as well as in business, the memories that we can help create is what creates that stick-to-itness.
That's right.
And it keeps
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Marilyn, what are you thinking? You're muted. Thank you.
I'm just thinking, I'm thinking into the future, but I'm also thinking back as to how important it made me feel
Okay.
Forgive me.
No problem.
But the very first time I had an in-home in my own home, and you were there, Roland. And what you went through to get there that night, and then what you had to go through to get back home. And the people that were there, I still remember the ones that were there. And at this point in time, none of them are active members, which they're again becoming a mistress of follow-up and just completely following through with things. That is in part my mission for this next year.
Very good.
The fact that you did what you did to get there, to share what we have to share with these people, I'll never forget that. because that is one of many reasons, but one very important reason I have stuck with this. Because Steve and I spoke about this just briefly at that weekend. I think it was Steve. No, it was someone else. It was someone else. What we have, we are not only doing ourselves a disservice, the company a disservice, but those people out there are begging and pleading for what we have. They may not be voicing it, but it's up to us to get it out there. And that's my heart. That's my heart. And yeah, there's a great financial gain that's available, but the health, the difference that can be made in people's lives, children's lives, that's what I'm thinking.
Wow. That's all heart. Thank you, Marilyn. It's all heart. That's what it's about. Thank you. Thank you. Maggie, what are you thinking? You got your speakers working yet? Your mic? No? Okay. Shannon, what are you thinking?
So many things. I mean, I don't have the history that any of you have. But I do know the value of a team. And although I don't have an upline team, I think it's important that when my team is built and while I'm building it, that I create those pieces, because I think that's what's going to help everyone move forward, is to make sure that you're recognizing people and that you're building a team. And I long for that belonging. I don't know how to explain that, but I want to be part of something, and I want to be part of something big, but I have to be the biggest to get the big. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
So I ran into Harper Guerrera a long time ago, years ago. And I say years ago, 3 years ago? But anyway, she said, why are you waiting? Create it. If you don't have it, go get it. Like, don't sit around and wait for it. You go get it. You create the team. You make what you want. Don't look at other people and say, I wish I had. I want this. I want that. Make it. If that's what you want, then go ahead and make it. And don't wait for it. So, I don't know. That's big to me, making sure that I treat my people well and I treat them right. And, before today, when we talked, I don't think my vision was big enough. I know where I want to go. I know I want to be key. I get that. And that's my sweet spot. That's when we keep saying, Mama gets to come home. I get to quit my job then.
It's okay. We're with you.
As my kids are yelling downstairs. I thought this would happen a really long time ago, and it didn't. And I didn't expect to cry tonight. And, I wanted to come home when my youngest was born, or my oldest, and she's 11 now. And that wasn't in the cards. And I didn't start Shackley until my son was 1 month old. And, I was gung-ho. I broke off right away, 3 months. I had quite a few people interested in, and I didn't understand the depth and how to grow a business. And I remember asking, and I asked questions, and I found out who my upline was, and I just kept going up. And I just remember asking questions, and it was like I never knew the answer, and I didn't understand the depth and how to grow, and I didn't understand all of that. I didn't understand the comp plan. I didn't understand any of those pieces. So I think without being able to cast my vision big enough, I couldn't reach it. I couldn't get there. And so I kind of say now that my kids are a little older, they're 7, 9, and 11, I am more busier now than I was when they were teeny tiny, and you guys all probably know that. And so the vision's still there, but I never thought I wanted it now more than I want it more than anything now than I may have wanted it back then, if that makes sense. So I think that's the vision I have now, and I don't think I had that before today, because I had a little a little time to think, not too much between then and now. But I think that's the power is being able to, see how the business works, how you want to make it grow, and attach that vision to it. And I wasn't able to attach the vision to it because I didn't think it was possible until the vision was big enough to make that happen. Because I know if I can reach Key, I can be the person I want to be and do what I want to do and be the mom that I've always envisioned me being, I mean, I do think I'm an amazing mom, don't get me wrong, but the time, I don't want life to own me. I want to own life. I want those things. So
That's good.
Yeah.
That's great. Very good. Thanks, Shannon. Thank you. PJ, what do you have to say?
Sometimes I'm quiet because I don't feel like I deserve to say anything.
Oh, don't you ever, 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 ever think that or say that again.
Until I get going. I have a big enough family. I tend to go from drama to drama, but I got to get past, I'm usually pretty resilient, as Marianne says, and bounce back, but I always seem to have a lot of drama around me that I need to just put aside and do what I know I need to do. I have been away from presentations, group presentations so long. I do one-on-ones, but not group, that what I had written down is that in December, the rest of December, and I've already had one of my Christmases, the other one's not till the 29th. I have some time to really revamp a presentation and make it mine, make it me. And so I need to focus December on that. So I'm ready to hit the floor running in January. And another thing I've been doing is I've been thinking about visions and why visions are important and listening to different things about visions. And a couple things that I learned about visions that are so true. One is that visions trump reality because our reality is always changing, and reality can be changed and bent by our will, and it often is by what we visualize, which is what our vision is. And then something else I heard that impacted me. Everybody subconsciously wants to have a vision, but most people out there don't have one. And so they even subconsciously are gravitating toward someone who has a strong vision. And so that's another reason why we need to have a vision. And our vision, like when I'm thinking about my vision and I need to just sit down and write it, it needs to be compelling. It needs to be something that pulls me strongly, not something that, because we don't want to be pushed. If we have to be pushed, push requires willpower, but the pull of a vision is what captures your passions, that excites you, and it creates emotional intensity. And another thing, if we have no vision, or if I have no vision, I'll be constantly blown around by the winds of life and constantly chasing things. And I'm a person with many interests, and I seem to get over involved in many things in life. And I just need to zero in on a few things that are the most important to me and go with that. And one of the things I heard while I was learning more about visions is ask what your vision is first, then join a company that matches your vision, and the money will follow. And I'm like, I'm already in that company. And along with that, the person said, chase the vision, not the money. The vision needs to be bigger in your heart and mind than the money is. And so I'm going to be working the rest of December on my vision and on my presentation. And you have my permission to kick butt with me starting in January.
Fantastic. You said something I thought that was very good. If you have the vision will draw you. That is really, really good. That's so true. That's a great point.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you. Steve or Linda? Comments?
Well, yeah, if you've got another hour, I could fill it with just what we've gotten from here. But, the first thing we started talking about really wasn't really vision, it was goals and what we're going to see. and I look back at our short tenure, and I can only say short, but because for me it hasn't been short, but compared to many of you wonderful people, it's been short. We spent the first 8 or 9 years of our Shackley life with goals, but no vision. Absolutely no vision. In fact, vision was something that you either had 20/20 or you didn't, but that was a different kind of vision. Then we started getting this concept of vision, and we've been working with this. And as I've listened to all of you speak and thought about what's going on for me and for Linda and for us, from having spent time sitting next to Marilyn for 2 days and talking about this, and vision is there, but you don't grasp it. It's like speaking, Roland. You've talked about rehearsing your talk, but then rehearsing it in the mirror. You've got to see yourself in the vision, and I think that's the step that I personally have to take really to heart, is really seeing. I've got the vision, but do I really see myself the way when you look in the mirror? And if I have anything that I must do to start 2019, it's to see myself in the vision, not just have the vision. And I was listening to a guy today, a football player, and he mentioned something because it creeped into my mind the other day, because we were at an in-home, and we were the old people there, and it bothered me for a little bit, and I had to shake that off. And we did well at the in-home, and we've talked about it, Roland, but and then I was listening on the radio today, and a football player that was very, very good, it was talking about age, and he said, you can't let the old man creep in. You just can't do it. Don't let him creep in. And that's got to be part of the vision. You can't let that happen. So that's my vision. I'm blessed to have all of you people to help me with my vision and to keep us on track. And I'm really looking forward to 2019 and the growth that's going to happen. I see myself and others walking on stage with many others as key coordinators.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Well, as I'm looking at thank you, Steve. As I'm looking at all of you, I'm thinking about the power in this group that's on this Zoom here tonight. Think what would happen if everybody started doing 2 in-homes a week. You're going to have stories of such success of people coming up in your business. And if you have a vision, a strong vision for the future, and you have a vision for them, and you help them with their vision, you help them pick out their car, and you send them things that have to do with the next trip that they can go on, and they can take some of their friends on the trip. I mean, really stretch the vision for them. Because many people start thinking, maybe I'll qualify for that trip. Get them to thinking about having some of their friends qualify. There's time to do that. And if everybody starts doing 2 in-homes a week, it's going to happen. It'll just guaranteed to happen. And that's why, talking to some of you, the goal is in 1 year developing 10 sales leaders. How would your business be if you had 2 people in your group trying to develop 10 sales leaders in 12 months from the time they get started? How would that be in your group? How would you feel? What would your group look like? Because you can't grow slow. It's not going to happen. So these are things that we're going to work on, and I just feel great energy coming from all of you in terms of where we're going in Shackley, and I'm already picturing a retreat for all of us and all your people. I haven't decided when it's going to be, but that's what I'm looking at. We're going to have so much fun because, like what Nina said, there's so many people desperately looking for a group they can be a part of, because they're out there in no man's land and they can't attach to anything that makes any sense. And boy, I tell you, you start pulling people in and they talk to other people and say, hey, this is the best group to be involved in, there'll be lots of people coming in that perhaps don't need the money, but they'll come into the group and build a business. That's what we have. Dick, you had something you wanted to say? Yes.
Yeah, I just talk about recognition. I got to brag on Maggie for just a second. Her microphone isn't working, but I got to tell you what happened a couple of weeks ago. Right after we got back from Chicago, Pam and I started a weekly Zoom with our group just to check in. What are people doing? What's working? What's not? Et cetera, et cetera. And that unfortunately got scheduled during the day, and Maggie teaches school, so she couldn't be on it. But Tuesday night, that a week after we got back from Chicago, she said, I can't be on the call tomorrow because I'm teaching, but I don't want you to, I want you to know what I'm doing. And in her first week back from Chicago, she had made 7 invites, or 8 invites, got 7 yeses, had a one-on-one, and had an in-home scheduled. And made the observation to Cheryl, I wonder if the change in my attitude has anything to do with it, or something like that, Maggie. Forgive me if I'm not giving the exact quote. I just thought that just was awesome. And Maggie, you rock. I'm just so proud of what you're doing. And you're putting the rest of us to shame, actually. But I just had to tell the rest of the group that, because Maggie's just getting going, and came back from Chicago not only on fire, but I think with a new attitude, new approach. And when you're, a couple of you have talked about energy, and when you have that, you attract people. And so people are coming to Maggie. Maggie's not just going to people. Is that right, Maggie? Is that a thumbs up? Accurate? You nod? Okay. So anyhow, had to do a little bragging on Maggie. I think she deserves it.
Oh, thank you. That's right. It's been a joy working with her, and I know you've experienced that too. So keep up the good work, Maggie. That's fantastic.
Congratulations, Maggie.
Yep, that's right. So, Nina, you want to make just a comment on the YouTube where all these videos are going to go, so they're permanently there.
Yeah, they are there.
Okay, so can you tell them what to do to get on that site or whatever?
If you just go to YouTube, go to Blazing Radiance, and then go to Roland's Zoom. I think that's what it is.
Blazing Radiance.
Yeah, if you go to YouTube and you type in Blazing Radiance, and then I've got them grouped so the Tuesday night ones are under Tuesdays. Here, just a minute. Tuesday testimonials. Let me look here a sec. I just loaded tonight's up, so it's already in there. Sorry.
So anyway, you can go back and check on them because they've been in there now for a number of weeks, and that
They're
way,
under Roland Zooms, yeah.
yeah.
Roland.
Blazing Radiance, Roland Zooms, and you'll find them. And anyway, I send it to Nina, and she puts it in there, and Marion or Jean will send it out to everybody. But instead of something you can look at like you did before, put in the link, it'll be on YouTube.
You don't have to download these like you had to download the links before. You can just go and watch the videos. And the Tuesday testimonials, I started labeling them now so that we know, like last week's was Crohn's and intestinal issues, and we had cancer and MS, asthma and children's. So that's how they're labeled for the testimonial ones. The other ones are just by dates. These ones are just by dates.
So I want to thank you for doing that, Nina, and I want to thank all of you for contributing on this Zoom. It just felt so good to hear from all of you and different stories, but we've got a team here that's really, really focused, and it's going to make it better for everybody to hear these stories and what other people are doing, but we're making it happen. We're a group that's going to be changing Shackley. I hope you understand that. We are a group that's going to be changing Shackley. So congratulations. So let's see. We will not be on next week, not till the first of the year. And